Good evening, Fundamentals of Human Geography class, course number 6350. This is Instructor Bings coming to you with this week's traveling around and seeing fundamentals of human geography in practice video. I'll have to work on the name of those videos, but anyway, this is the video I talked about last night, and it is going to have to do with migration, which is a topic in chapter 3 of your textbook, and one of the internally forced migrations in the United States of America. That is, it was a migration within our country, internal. It was forced, and that was where one group of people forced another group to move. And we're talking about the Trail of Tears, migration of the 5 civilized tribes. This video basically is to show you how we are still connected to that today, and that fundamentals of all of the human geographies that we're studying are very relevant to our life. So, having said that, let me now share with you the topic of the video. So you should be able to see this on the screen now. This is a video about Choctaw Chief Green McCurtain, and more fully, his name was Greenwood McCurtain. Green McCurtain was not born in the southeast part of the United States. He did not come on the Trail of Tears. His parents came to Oklahoma. He was born in 1848 in Scullyville, Choctaw Nation, Indian Territory. Scullyville is an area that is just to the northeast of Spiro. So that's where he was born. And then his family moved to Haskell County, and Green ended up living his days in and around the Kinta, Oklahoma area, where he is buried at the Sandboy Cemetery. He was the chief of the Choctaw Nation from 1896 to 1900, and then again from 1902 until his death in 1910. There we go, 1910. So he was the chief of the Choctaw Nation when Oklahoma became a state, which was in 1907. See the map behind me there? That's our state map when we became an official state. So he was chief of the Choctaw Nation. The Choctaw Nation dissolved officially as a political entity in 1907, and he remained the final chief until his death in 1910. He served his people, the Choctaws, in many ways. He served as the treasurer of the Choctaw National Treasury for 2 terms. He went to Washington, D.C. as the Choctaw delegate twice. He served as a district attorney, and then, of course, as chief. He was able to secure $2 million for his people while he was the treasurer. He did a lot for his people. Now, what I want to focus on is his birth in Scullyville briefly, and then more to the point, where he is buried in Sandboy Cemetery, Haskell County, outside of Kinta. So, a little over a week ago, me and my son went to Fort Smith, and we went through Spiro, and we stopped at the historical markers. There are actually two of them. This here is your handsomely rugged instructor in the middle. Then you have a marker that says Fort Coffee, and then you have one that says Choctaw Agency. Now this is, if you've ever been through Spiro going towards Pacola in Fort Smith, these markers are, once you pass over the little lake in Spiro and you start to head that stretch between Spiro and Pacola where the Spiro Mounds turnoff is, these markers are actually before the Spiro Mounds on the south side of the road or on the right side. But the Choctaw Agency sign indicates that the Choctaw Agency building was built in this area where Fort Coffee was. Fort Coffee would be a military fort. And eventually the village around it became known as Scullyville. So that is where Green McCurtain was born. But now I want to show you, let me find the right, here we go. Google Maps. You got to love Google Maps. So here you can see it says home. That's my home. This is the little town of Quinton. And actually my house is a little bit farther this way. But anyway, from Quinton to Kinta is 8 miles. Doo-doo. And then from Kinta, you go a little jog north. And then you go back to the east about 1, 2, 3, almost 4 miles. And then you go up about half a mile and you come to the Sandboy Cemetery. That is this green area here. I'm going to switch to satellite. So here is the Sandboy Cemetery. And friends, students, countrymen, maps, maps, let me switch back to map view. As you should have already learned, maps are a geographer's friend, one of our chief tools. So back to the satellite view of the cemetery. Now, if you guys read my bio, you know that I'm a pastor, and I have done several funerals here. I was the pastor at Kinta for 3 years back in the early 2000s, and I've now been at Quinton for almost 10 years. So I've done a few funerals here, but it's probably hard for you to see, but all those little dots are tombstones. Now this here is a pavilion. You know, sometimes when you go to a cemetery, it's raining, so you have your service here. But notice here, a rectangular structure with a big white looks like a building there. Let me tell you what that is. That right there is Chief Green McCurtain's tomb. This whole rectangle here is a 3-foot stone wall. This is his whole family's burial plot. And this big tomb right there is his. But we don't want to just see it in a map. Let me take you there now. And I guess I'm going to call this trekking through a human geography with Instructor Bings. So, won't you join me? All right, class. Instructor Bings here. And I am now coming to you from the Sandboy Cemetery outside of Kinta, or as they say here, the locals, Kenna, Oklahoma. And I am in my vehicle just about 20 feet from Chief McCurtain's grave. So remember all that information I read you. Let's go check it out. Shall we? Alrighty, there it is. That is his big headstone, and he is buried with a lot of family. And I'm just going to pan around here, and you can see this is kind of a 2.5 to 3 foot stone wall enclosure for the McCurtain family. But this is Governor Greenwood McCurtain's grave, and a lot of what I read to you earlier is on this tombstone. November 28th, 1848 is when he was born. Died December 27th, 1910. Oklahoma would have been 3 years old at that time. And even though the Choctaw Nation had officially dissolved, he remained as the governor until he died. Trying to see what there's a scripture here on his grave. He hath showed thee, O man, what is good, and what doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justice, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God. Micah 6:8. So that's a wonderful verse. Over here, it's very interesting. You can't probably read that, but that is the tomb of his son, Napoleon. So this is, students, class, this is the human geography of the, starting to rain, so I'm going to wrap this up. This is the human geography of forced migration. This is a link to it right here in southeast Oklahoma. Even though Governor McCurtain never was on the Trail of Tears, his parents were, and he was born in 1848 after they came here. So let's get back inside the vehicle and we'll stay dry from this point on. Alrighty here. So some of you may have family, well, I have no doubt that some of you have family that came to Oklahoma
on the Trail of Tears. It was a forced migration for them. But, you know, what's interesting to think about with the new presidential administration is I think I saw on the news that there's already caravans of people coming from Central America, and they're coming to Mexico, and then they're going to travel through Mexico and try to get across our border. Apparently, I don't know all the story, but of course there's controversy about should we allow, what about illegal immigrants? Even though we know what the law says, there is debate now about that. But there are several people who come, they migrate for work or other considerations that are forced out of the country. But anyway, hopefully this will be an impetus for more thought for you about this issue. So this is Instructor Bings, coming to you from the Sandboy Cemetery in Haskell County, Oklahoma, outside of Kenna. And have a great evening, and we'll be talking with you again sometime soon. Bye-bye.